Well, tonight on RFL, the president says this is going to be a year of action. At least that's what he told us in his State of the Union address. We're going to break down some of the loftier proposals and the chances of getting anything through this Congress. And just what was New York Congressman Michael Grimm thinking here when he threatened a reporter? But it's not just the outbursts, it's the way that he kind of sort of apologized that's got him on the hot seat tonight. And the Super Bowl, the kickoff party underway in the heart of the Big Apple. We'll go for a walk down Super Bowl Boulevard in Times Square. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thanks so much for joining us this Wednesday evening, January 29th. Well, last night, as you know, if you watched this program and tuned in later on our special broadcast, the president, he pledged that 2014 would be different than the year before, and maybe before that. He said it was going to be a year of action. And he said he will do it with or without cooperation from this Congress. Well, today, the president, he focused on raising the minimum wage and setting up retirement savings accounts for the millions of American workers that don't have them. And he's going directly to the people with that very message. Today, President Obama took his State of the Union message directly to the American workers. At a steel plant outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the president touted his new plan to help people prepare for their golden years.
I'm going to sign a presidential memorandum that directs the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, to create a new way for working Americans to start their own retirement savings.
It's aimed at workers who employers don't offer retirement plans. The White House said that's about half the nation's workforce. Earlier today, the president stopped by a suburban Maryland Costco to push for an increase in the federal minimum wage.
Give America a raise. Making work pay means doing more to help Americans all across this country.
The big box store pays its entry-level workers $11.50 an hour, more than $4 above the federal minimum wage.
Profitable corporations like Costco see higher wages as a smart way to boost productivity and to reduce turnover.
Last night, the president announced an executive order that would raise the minimum wage for new federal contract workers to $10.10 an hour. Now he wants Congress to do the same for all American workers. But many Republicans say it won't help. House Speaker John Boehner said yesterday that low-income Americans could lose their jobs if employers are forced to raise wages.
Listen, I used to be an employer. When you raise the cost of something, you get less of it.
All right. Well, minimum wage seems to be battleground one, but there was more than a few issues that the president seemed to draw a bright line, or at least maybe a strong ask. Let's bring in Andrew Whitman, who was down in our nation's capital last night for the State of the Union address. And I know, Andrew, you heard from a lot of the members of the congressional delegations from the tri-state area. And not surprisingly, depending on their perspective, they thought the president either went too far if they were Republicans, and even some Democrats thought he could have gone even farther.
Sure.
Most reaction to the address was not overly ambitious, maybe a reflection of the way Congress is made up right now. But a lot of people thought it was okay, but it wasn't overly forceful. It almost sounded like he was asking please.
If you looked at previous States of the Union, including last year's, the 2013 State of the Union, he proposed about 13 to 15 big ideas, and he got through 2 of them. So the sense that I got watching the State of the Union address last night is that this president is done trying to get stuff through Congress. I mean, he made the play on immigration reform. He's making the play on the minimum wage. But the sense that I got is that it's less about trying to get the policy put through and more about trying to put a marker down. Here's where I am. Here's where the Democratic Party is. And then challenging Republicans to keep their current positions. Last night was the start of the 2014 midterm campaign, as far as I could tell, with the president staking out that position and making one last pitch to try to get Congress leaning Democratic as opposed to leaning Republican. I was surprised by some of the tone that he took on the minimum wage, on immigration. It was basically a come on, do the right thing kind of thing. You know, I talked to Peter King after the address, and he was saying that's not going to help some of the frayed nerves from Republicans in Congress, and I don't think it will.
From Jerry Nadler, who talked to you, and a lot of other Democrats I've seen nationally who say, please. He's been trying this now for 5 years, getting absolutely nowhere. We think he should have gone even stronger on this because the public, by 70, 80 percentiles, support minimum wage, extending food stamps, unemployment insurance. The president talked about income inequality. Day one today, he went out on the stump on it. You get the idea that Democrats think this might be the issue that can put Republicans in a box because they either have to say, yes, I'm for extending it, or no, I'm against food stamps or whatever else. We talked about some Republicans saying, well, maybe we'll take a piecemeal approach. You got the idea that both parties are trying to put the other party in the box. Republicans passing something small, forcing the president to say no, vote it down if he doesn't get the whole thing. Conversely, the president trying to put something out there that's almost a poison pill for the Tea Party.
But remember where we were a year ago. The big issue coming out of the State of the Union was gun control and background checks and 90% support for the background checks. And it couldn't get through Congress. And it's not that there's not enough support for the minimum wage or for immigration reform or for equality or stemming inequality. The public does agree with President Obama on those issues. The question is, are they voting issues? Are they enough of an issue to actually get people out to the ballot box and cast their ballots? I don't think the background checks was, as we haven't seen any evidence of that last year, stemming from last year's State of the Union. These might be, because minimum wage bills affect everybody. Well, and I thought the president made a very good case, a very strong case, that you raise the minimum wage and it actually helps everybody. That's a strong selling point.
Well, it's going to be interesting how that thing plays out, because I think more people know people now that are out of work than you would have maybe put into that same group 10 years ago. A lot of people from different levels of the economy right now know people that have been out of work, not for a few weeks, a few months, here for an extended period of time, and they know they're not just lazy. They just are having trouble to find a way to get on their feet.
And a lot of people know people who are making less than $10 an hour right now. I mean, what we always considered minimum wage jobs, the McDonald's or the guy working the cashier lane at Walmart, a lot of those jobs now, I think something like 30% of them are 30 and older. These are jobs that people are being sort of backed into taking. And the idea of making less than $10 an hour, that's also something that's a common phenomenon across the country.
Literally finding yourself below the poverty line, even with a full-time job. Okay, immigration, some say, could be about the only thing that has a chance of actually passing, although it looks unlikely in this particular election cycle. This is last night from the State of the Union, the president on the issue of immigration.
Finally, if we're serious about economic growth, it is time to heed the call of business leaders, labor leaders, faith leaders, law enforcement, and fix our broken immigration system. When people come here to fulfill their dreams, to study, invent, contribute to our culture, they make our country a more attractive place for businesses to locate and create jobs for everybody. So let's get immigration reform done this year.
Sounds good. But then when I heard Republicans today, Paul Ryan and others saying, maybe, but we have our own version of it, which is basically, and I know Congressman Pallone talked about this with you and why he wouldn't go for the Republican approach, which is there's no pathway to citizenship if you're in this country illegally. And there's like a two-tiered status. Either you are legal on your way, or you're not and never can be, and that doesn't seem to have a chance to make its way through. And a lot of people, we were talking about this on the desk last night, both in the 6 o'clock hour and then after the address, was George Bush's plan. It doesn't reflect this Republican Party. Ronald Reagan talked about a plan that was much more of a pathway to citizenship as well. It's not like the Republican Party's never done this. And I thought, Andrew, after 2012, they would embrace this kind of idea.
Well, they're starting to soften to it, which is why you're getting a legal status as the end game for Republicans, but not going all the way to full-fledged citizenship. It's a casual litmus test, but I was watching John Boehner behind the president during those clips, and he looked like he wanted to go have a cigarette. I mean, he was not interested at all in supporting President Obama there. There's enough of a goal. Look, the DREAM Act might be a possibility this year. There is some wiggle room here to get some intermediate reform done. But comprehensive immigration reform, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think a lot of Democrats want to keep the issue out there as well to be able to use it as a cudgel against Republicans going into the fall.
We don't have time to play the stop, but maybe we can roll some of the video. You were there. The most powerful moment was clearly the final one of the address, where we recognized in the audience, in fact, the soldier sitting with the First Lady, injured, who's gone through intensive rehabilitation. It seemed to strike a chord not only across partisan lines, but legitimate, genuine. It wasn't just the obligatory stand up and clap because the cameras are on. It seemed to at least move that room.
It was moving, and there were a lot of people in the press room in Cannon Rotunda where I was watching, where all the media was camped out. They were pretty well fixed on it as it happened. He cuts a striking image, as you can see, and just when the camera zooms in on him.
10th tour.
Yeah.
10th tour that he was there, and the president used it as an opportunity to talk about the commitment that we still owe our veterans.
Well, on the policy, there may not be that agreement, but we can certainly agree that we support our troops and that we, they're heroic for what they do, especially guys like that, 10 tours and the struggles they go through afterwards.
Okay, when we come back, when the State of the Union concluded, if you were with us, you saw Andrew talking to a whole host of area congressmen. Well, one of them he didn't get a chance to talk to was Staten Island's own Mike Grimm. It seemed that Mr. Grimm wasn't in the mood for answering too many questions. And if you didn't see the exchange he had with a certain area reporter, you have to see it to believe it. We'll have that right after this.